I'm Andy Johnson, Minnesota State University. We are going to look at another boondoggle, which is LETRS Professional Training Program. Another skills-based boondoggle designed to make money, not really to develop reading skills. And you will see some of that when you go to their website. It is essentially an infomercial disguised as research. Research to support little bits of this and that, lots of charts, lots of colors. Oh, lots of big words, says all the right things, and I'm sure state legislatures and decision makers will be very impressed with everything that's there. But literacy specialists with training in literacy are not impressed at all. When you go to the website, LETRS is a teacher training program, and it's set within the context of Lexia, which is a for-profit sort of thing. Now, there's nothing wrong with making a profit. However, we should not be making profits off the backs of our struggling readers. Oh, they have things that look good and sound good, rigorous, personalized, structured, peer-reviewed efficacy research, gold standard outcomes. These are words, and some people are impressed, but getting beyond the words, structured and systematic. And look at this: syntax, morphology, syllables, semantics. Oh my goodness, this must be research-based. This must be very good. This must deliver results. And look at this. They've even got rewards or awards. They've got awards. Look at all these awards. It must be good. But if you notice, it's tech and learning, EdTech, tech and learning, the American Business Award, any literacy awards here? Any reading instruction awards here? I think not. Now, something is always better than nothing. If you give students something, they're always going to improve a little bit. Students improve from pre to post, as well as maturation. But if you teach a series of meaningless reading subskills, which LETRS trains teachers to use, and by the way, then they push you to buy this Reading Core 5 or whatever it is. But if you teach meaningless reading subskills, which this LETRS program does, you will get an increase in meaningless reading subskills. You teach little bits of that, you'll get an increase in bits of that. But the question is, are students better able to create meaning with print? And is the meaningless reading subskills better than teaching the skills in the context of authentic books, authentic writing, and teaching skills as students need and are ready for them? Now, this is a training program. The cost is $15.45. Oh my gosh, plus applicable fees. And students must have a LETRS textbook, an online license. And these things cost money, you know. You can't just give away these things for nothing. However, you could buy my book for $32. You don't need no license. You don't need no fees or textbooks. All the strategies you need right there. And my editors publish this in black and white. We don't have glossy pages to keep the price down. There is no one-size-fits-all program or method. And LETRS teaches teachers how to teach things a specific way, and it pushes students, teachers, towards this Core 5 reading. A little bit more on that in just a minute. But there's a senator approves an education bill to reverse Minnesota's declining reading scores. Oh my goodness, that sounds very important, doesn't it? But are reading scores really declining? Or are you just saying that, Senator Chamberlain? This is what he wants to do. He says, Language Essentials for Teaching, that is a program. It's essential, he says. States like Mississippi are outperforming Minnesota. Oh my gosh, And that's really not true. That's really not true. But this bill appropriates $30 million to provide all teachers with LETRS program training. Oh my goodness. Now think about how that 30 million could be better spent. Smaller class sizes, more actual books, breakfast for kids, all these other things. And they want to make this mandatory that we in teacher education programs include LETRS. Now I'm sure, let me get back here. Senator Chamberlain is a very nice person. But has he ever read a research article related to reading instruction? Does he know more than I do about teaching reading? I've been doing this for 30 years. Maybe he does. I'm not the brightest light bulb in the carrot drawer. I don't know. But aside from this, he decided that we need regional centers of excellence. Our faculty staff with specialists to prove support to schools across the state. Specialists. I wonder where these specialists will come from. Oh, the LETRS people, because they want everyone LETRS certified and reading professionals. Include at least 2 literacy specialists and a dyslexia specialist. Oh my gosh, someone's making money with all this specialists. Yes, you're using scientifically based research, and we'll get to that. I notice people that throw around that term really don't understand science, and they don't understand research. They've been to first grade, they think they understand reading, but they actually don't. So, Louisa Moats, Dr. Moats, has designed LETRS, a professional learning, and she has 10 reasons why it is essential. These are the 10 reasons, and we're going to go over this one today. Now, some of these I can agree with, her interpretation of some of these, and we'll look at these later, but today I'm just looking at this one. Prior coursework has been insufficient to prepare teachers for effective literacy instruction. That is her declarative statement. That's her premise. Oh my gosh! Does she have anything to back up this premise? LETRS is a professional learning course or courses for instructors of reading, spelling, and related language skills. It provides educators with in-depth knowledge and tools that they can use with any reading program. Any reading program, well, that's good, except it kind of pushes you towards a specific one. It's set in the context of Lexia. Lexia Core 5. Oh, by that, it costs $175 for the first student and $110 for each additional student in your class. So it's designed to make money. Make money. Now, when you go to the Lexia website, and I have, get a lot of stuff. Why Lexia? Lexia by state. And again, it's a infomercial disguised as research. So I go to the LETRS product. Okay, I want to find out about this LETRS thing. And I see, oh, Dr. Moats has a lot of stuff here. It must be very impressive. All these citations. Yes, yes, yes. So the content and teaching recommendations of LETRS are derived from decades of scientific reading research, as documented in an extensive reference list within the written texts. I'm guessing, is that the text that you have to buy? Or is it in this white paper? Now, white papers are not research. Research is not research unless and until it is peer reviewed. Decades of scientific research. Well, how can it be scientific if it ignores a whole wealth of data? If it only looks at sounding out word instruction and only uses controlled experimental studies and ignores a whole wealth of stuff as well. The International Literacy Association has been around for 100 years. I don't know. National Council of Teachers of English, same thing. I forget which one has been around longer, but these are comprised of thousands of researchers, scholars, teachers, practitioners, parents, and they've come up with more decades of scientific research, and they've come to quite a different conclusion. So who should I believe? Dr. Moats and Senator Chamberlain, or thousands of researchers and scholars over 100 years? Who should I believe? You tell me. LETRS also offers dynamic online learning, okay, to reinforce concepts, okay. Is there research to support LETRS? This teacher training program. Research is not research unless and until it has been subject to blind peer review. Simply collecting data, Senator Chamberlain, is different from research. Doing a study is different from research. I can collect data, I can do a study, and it could say all sorts of different things. But blind peer review research checks your methodology, checks your analysis to make sure that you're not just spouting things off. Make sure that you're being honest, that your research is indeed supported. Now, I went to their website. It said research. Okay, that's a good thing. Search by keyword. I pressed in LETRS. That's what I did. And by the way, none of these state progress reports, validity, are actually research. It says research briefs, but no, there were no research articles. And this is what I came up with when I pressed LETRS. There are no results matching your search selection. So to say it's a research-based program is a little misleading. A training program teaching various research-based strategies is different from a research-based program. And I'm sure some of the strategies that are taught in this LETRS are research-based. The problem is not the what, it's the how and the how much. And are you going to teach a few little strategies or a whole variety of strategies? Now, years ago, there was the Charlotte Danielson thing, and it did the same thing. People jumped on board. Oh, this is research-based. Everyone has to have Charlotte Danielson. Well, what good old Charlotte Danielson did, she had 72 little strategies or little things supported by research, and she put them all together and said, my framework is research-based. But it wasn't. A bunch of research-based things put together does not make the whole a research-based strategy. There was no research, zero, to support Charlotte Danielson being better for teacher training than something else. But school boards, school districts, teacher preparations jumped on board because it sounded good and it had a framework. It was simple and easy. Understand, it's important to understand educational research. What is science? What is reading? Now, it said it helped transform Mississippi. All right, colorful charts and graphs is not research. This is not science. Reading is science. Well, okay, I could unpack that statement in another one. But simply collecting data is not science. Here again is good old Senator Chamberlain. So, the premise is that Dr. Moat said, teachers aren't prepared to teach reading. Okay, let's unpack that. That's her first statement. And Dr. Moat, I'm sure, is making a lot of money. She has speaking fees. She's a consultant. She's making, look, there's her consulting business. She's making money off of all of this. Lots of people are making money. What is their motivation? All right, so here's her premise. The majority of teacher preparation programs do not offer courses that thoroughly prepare teachers to build all of the essential skills involved in reading. That's her premise, and we're going to unpack that with all these research articles. However, she has defined what she thinks are the essential skills for reading based on a linguistic point of view, a very narrow point of view. So she defined what reading is in reading instruction. And there are many, including the International Literacy Association, who would disagree with the good Dr. Moats. Higher education teacher preparation courses often teach only some of the essential components of reading. How often is often? What percentage? Is this supported? Are you just saying stuff? Well, she's just saying stuff. Recommended by major consensus reports, such as that of the National Reading Panel. All right. She inserted this citation to make it look like this first part of the clause was supported by that. And all the National Reading Panel did was recommend 5 what they called essential pillars. So I don't know which is scarier, that Dr. Moats knows better and does it anyway, or that she doesn't know any better. They are both scary propositions. I don't know which is more scarier for our state of Minnesota. Do the teacher preparation programs, does the Minnesota Department of Education, do they know better and do it anyway, or don't they know any better? Now, Senator Chamberlain, okay, he's not a reading expert. He wants to score points, political points. He read a flashy brochure, so I understand why he doesn't know. But Senator, your job is to find the literacy experts, not someone who agrees with what you think, not someone who's in the pocket of these for-profit programs, but find the literacy experts who've spent years studying this and listen with an open mind. Reading instruction is too important. Learning to read is a social justice issue, and it's too important to be left to the whims of politics or the educational industrial complex. Now, the National Institution of Child Health and Human Development, that's not a literacy organization, but they put together this National Reading Panel report, which some think is the truth. However, there are many, many, many flaws in this National Reading Report put together by a Child Health and Human Development Center. They selected people to be on this panel. Chair was an eminent physicist and chancellor. If I had problems in physics, I'd go to good Dr. Langenberg. For literacy, he would be a little bit longer down the list. Why was there a need for this panel in the first place when we have the International Literacy Association, National Council of Teachers of English, who have thousands of people, as I've said, who have all this information, but they didn't like this information. They chose 14 members, many of who were not literacy people. There were accountants, there were sociologists in that list. 14 members. And I think they had 18 months to collect all this research data. Even though this had been done by major organizations, they decided that they knew best. Now, this panel only selected members that had a particular point of view, positivistic research paradigm. That means the only thing that counted as knowledge was that which was generated by controlled experimental research. And I've talked about the limitation of this view in other places. The qualitative inquiry was thrown out. Miscue analysis, eye movement research, priming studies in cognitive psychology, understanding how the brain creates meaning with brain. That doesn't exist. That's not important. That's ridiculous. So they only selected members who had this research paradigm, and they only looked at a very narrow slice of research that had controlled experimental studies. They thought that that's the only way to demonstrate causality, that one thing causes another. And they all had a simple view of reading, that reading is sounding out words. They started with the answer. And the results they got was nothing new, but very limited. We've known these things for years, and they're very limited, and the way they were interpreted is not quite correct. They said that the 5 pillars of reading instruction, phonics, phonemic awareness, comprehension, vocabulary, and fluency. Nothing new. We all believe that these things should be taught. Phonics, phonemic, yes, absolutely. It's not the what, it's the how, it's the how much, and the when you teach these things. Everyone believes in phonics instruction, absolutely, but how do you do it? They started with the answer and only looked for data that supported their answer. And their answer was reading is sounding out words. We need to find studies that show that teaching sounding out words instruction is important. Now, there's 2 theoretical perspectives, and I'll just briefly touch on this, but the phonological processing model is called the simple view of reading. You see the words on the page, you process them using phonics, and that information flows one way from the page to the thalamus and up to the cortex. That's a simple view, of course. Who doesn't agree with that? I don't agree with it. The neurocognitive model, based on neuroscience and cognitive neuroscience and a bunch of things from a wealth of studies, and they're cited in my book, says that there's a 2-way flow of information. As a matter of fact, 10 times more information is flowing from the cortex down to the thalamus during reading than from the thalamus up. We're using what's in our head, cortex, to create meaning with print. Reading is not sounding out words, it's creating meaning. And when we get data, input data, our brain recognizes words 3 ways. We use phonics to recognize words. We use syntax, or the syntactic cueing system. That is word order, grammar. And we use semantics, or the semantic cueing system. That is context. When we are reading, we use all 3 of these. So whereas this model teaches one, and LETRS program is supported or based on the simple view of reading, teaching low-level skills. If students aren't doing well, you teach more of what's not working. The neurocognitive model says that reading is creating meaning with print. And we have activities, yes, explicit and direct phonics instruction, but also word identification. And I'll get to that in just a minute. But word identification is different from word recognition. So they had 5 pillars, but they were 5 pillars short. The 10 pillars of reading instruction, phonemic awareness, absolutely, but generally discontinued after the child is reading comfortably at reading level 1. Phoneme is sound, ability to break words into sounds or to manipulate sounds. That's important for some. Now, the evidence for phonemic awareness is more, the correlational research is stronger than the causal. It's not necessarily causal. Here's the thing. Students who scored well on tests of phonemic awareness in kindergarten tended to do better on tests in 1st and 2nd grade. But that's not causal, because their high scores were based on, or could be based on, exposure to books, exposure to language in the home. So it's correlational. The support for saying phonemic awareness causes good reading in first, second, and third grade. I haven't found any strong research to support there. Word recognition and word work. Recognizing words is seeing a word and your brain automatically knows what it is. And we do a lot of word work. That's where we look at word parts and letter sounds and letter patterns. Yeah, we have some of that, absolutely. Word recognition is different than word identification. Word identification is a strategy. You see a word, it's in your lexicon or in your dictionary. You don't recognize it. So you say, I need a strategy. And there are 4 strategies for you to recognize words. All right, that's called word identification, to identify words. Morphemic analysis, prefix, suffix, root. Analogy, looking at word parts. Context, meaning, what makes sense in the sentence. And phonics, letter sound relationships. We teach all 4 of them explicitly. If we're not teaching them, we're not giving our students a total reading instruction, total reading curriculum. And here's phonics instruction. Yeah, that's important. But synthetic phonics, analytic phonics, and large unit phonics. Writing is one of the best ways. The link between writing and reading is very strong. Writing is one of the best ways to reinforce letter-sound relationships and at the same time develop that syntactic cueing system. And students should be writing authentic writing, describing their ideas. Reading practice, volume has been linked with reading achievement. The amount of reading students do, they need reading practice. Fluency, the ability to process text quickly. Vocabulary, comprehension, yep, and the social emotional elements of the reader, absolutely. 10 pillars, not 5, but 10. Good classroom instruction should have 7 elements. During the week, I should see daily reading practice. I should see social interaction, students talking about books. Authentic writing, yes. Activities and instruction to develop all 3 cueing systems for word recognition. And remember, word recognition is different than word identification. 3 cueing systems: phonics, syntax, and semantics. Activities and instruction to develop all 3, not 1. I don't want to give students a third of a reading education, but all 3. And then word identification strategies. Comprehension is one of the most under-taught skills, taught explicitly. And we teach both strategies for reading expository text and narrative text. We teach students how to read a textbook, and we teach the cognitive processes related to that. And then activities to develop word knowledge. These are 7 essential elements that we must see. Now, how many of these elements is LETRS including? Is LETRS differentiating between word recognition and word identification? Are they teaching the comprehension strategies that should be taught? More on that later. All right. The majority of teacher preparation programs do not offer courses that thoroughly prepare teachers to build all of the essential skills involved in reading. The majority. Now, how many is that? What percentages? What courses? What skills? Is it LETRS related thing? Let's look at this first citation here. Look at some of the sources. And to be good consumers of educational research and educational products, we should always look at the research. Just saying it's research-based doesn't make it research-based. All right, this is the first citation that was cited in support of saying teachers are not prepared. Now look at this. First grade teachers' knowledge of phonological awareness and code concepts, examining gains from an intensive form of professional development and corresponding teacher attitudes. This is looking at gains from professional development and teacher attitudes. It's not looking at whether teachers were prepared. This study examined the efficacy of an intensive form of professional development for building the knowledge of first grade teachers. All right? Teacher preparation programs, not so much. Professional development, okay, you're looking at professional development. I think these skills are important. I'm going to teach it, and at the end, you're going to be better at what I taught you. Absolutely. Okay. Pre and post assessment of participants on a teacher knowledge survey indicated weak knowledge of phonological awareness and phonics concepts prior to professional development and large significant gains in each area by the end. All right. So it's the impact of professional development on the knowledge. It has nothing to do with prior coursework or teacher preparation program or the coursework in general. A teacher knowledge survey that they put together. They thought, well, these are things I think are important, which they're really not. They need to know the names and the terms and this and that, and I'm going to measure them. And if they don't measure up to what I think they should, I'm going to say, well, they're not prepared, which is kind of baloney. And this is what they wrote. In the study reported here, our main goal was to evaluate whether substantial gains in first grade teachers' knowledge would be obtained with an intensive professional development program. Anything about teacher prep? No, they're looking at a professional development program. Was that program effective? All right. So this statement, the majority of teacher preparation programs do not offer courses that's not supported by this research. And again, it's a professional development project. Again, I don't know which is scarier, that Dr. Moats didn't know the difference, or she knew the difference and included this citation anyway. That's a little bit weaselly, if you ask me. All right, let's look at the second citation. Greenberg, McKee, and Walsh. Oh, I see Walsh here, and I see Walsh down there. What an amazing coincidence. Quinkydink. All right, this was published by the National Councils for Teacher Quality. It is a think tank. It is not an academic journal. It's not peer-reviewed research. Research is not research unless and until it has been subjected to blind peer review. That's what research is. You can't just collect a bunch of data and say it's research. They receive fundings from foundations and private donors. They have an agenda. They have an agenda. So reports put out by a think tank, if you want it to be research, send it to a journal, get some blind peer review, and then what you say may be a little bit credible. All right, let's look at this third citation. And this Jossie and Binks are in two different ones, but we'll look at the third one. The role of teacher education programs in preparing teachers for implementing evidence-based reading practices. This is a good one. It's found in a handbook, an edited volume, okay, by Oxford University Press. Not quite the same as blind peer review, okay, but reading is a basic skill. Evidence-based reading practices are available components of good reading instruction as identified by the National Reading Panel. And again, that report has been examined by actual literacy professionals, literacy experts, and it's been discredited largely. I mean, they have come up with a very narrow range, but it was nothing new. The results reported in this chapter show that many teacher educators are not knowledgeable in several of the basic linguistic constructs needed for literacy development, and many of the textbooks used in reading education courses are not providing the evidence-based reading instruction program. All right, she decided that all teachers need to know linguistic constructs, not how to teach reading, but linguistic constructs and the linguistic components of the English language. She decided that that's important and that teacher education must include information about English word structure for educators. She thought that was important. It's not, but she decided that. It's not. The International Literacy Association would disagree. But here's her statement again. The majority of teacher preparation programs do not offer courses that thoroughly prepare teachers to build all the essential skills involved in reading. According to her, all teachers need to know the basic linguistic constructs needed for literacy development. Hmm. Linguistic components of the English language. She has this view that you start with a series of skills. You teach a list of skills in a specific order. All students get the same order of skills. That's what this is based on. All right, a little bit more. The fourth citation. Here's that Joshi Binks again. We'll take a little bit more look at, this is kind of the same research, why elementary teachers might be inadequately prepared to teach reading. By the way, the first Joshi Binks was in an edited volume, so I could not get that, but I actually got the actual research article here. And it is interesting. Several national reports have suggested, they suggested, I don't know, the usefulness of systematic explicit synthetic phonics instruction. Well, yes, everyone agrees with that. It's not the what, it's the how and the how much. But based on English word structure, no, not really, not really. Other studies have indicated, and that's kind of a weak statement. So the authors hypothesize that one of the reasons for this situation is that many instructors responsible for training future elementary teachers are not familiar with the concepts of the linguistic features of English language. Okay, so I am not doing a good job teaching my students research-based strategies because I am not familiar with the linguistic features of English language. I cannot teach reading because I am not familiar with these things. Well, imagine that. I need to go back to the hundreds of students I have taught how to read over the years and tutor them and say, sorry, you don't know how to read. I didn't teach you linguistic features. All right, this hypothesis was tested. They administered a survey, just like the previous one, to 78 instructors. Now, 80% of instructors define phonological awareness as letters, sound, correspondence. Oh my goodness, they had the wrong term and didn't understand this term. They also did not mention synthetic phonics as a desirable method to use. Oh no, that is horrible. Remember, synthetic phonics is one of 3 ways to teach phonics, and you should include all 3, synthetic, analytic, and large unit. And I would posit that most teachers don't know the difference, and that's nothing wrong with that, but they're doing a dandy job of teaching reading, all right? Particularly for students at risk for reading difficulties. Oh, so they are saying that students with reading difficulties need more sounding out word practice. That's essentially what they're saying. In conclusion, professional development, like LETRS, in which Dr. Moats will make lots of money, related to language concepts, could provide them necessary knowledge. Okay, what if what she is saying is true? Okay, we'll look at this based on, okay, what she's saying makes sense. To measure the linguistic knowledge of educators, we developed a survey of language constructs. They developed a survey. Interesting. Well, I could develop a survey. The items in the survey included questions regarding how well university instructors felt prepared to teach typical readers, as well as struggling readers in the skills of reading. Okay? How well a university instructor felt prepared to teach readers. Ask for the definitions such as phoneme and morpheme, as well as the identification of a number of speech sounds such as box and moon, and the number of morphemes in a word. Okay, that's very important, apparently. We also included questions related to the teaching of vocabulary, comprehension, and okay. They made up a survey based on what they thought should be taught. And again, this is the simple view of reading. Reading is sounding out words. You teach sounding out word skills. Versus the neurocognitive model, reading is creating meaning with print. All right, so 78 colleges, literacy instruction from literacy professors, 30 different university universities and community colleges. Now, community two-year colleges, community colleges, rarely teach literacy methods. It's usually when you get to a four-year university. Instructors represented various departments. Now, that was a red flag. Educational psychology, curriculum and instruction, special education, English as a second language, bilingual education, educational administration, educational leadership. These are not literacy areas. Someone in special education does not have the expertise that a literacy professor has, that someone who gets a degree in literacy instruction, in reading specialists. So they're picking people that are teaching reading classes, okay, but how many of these were reading specialists with a terminal degree in reading or literacy instruction? How many? So they made up a test, they gave it to people. Many would disagree with the items on the test. This represents a Humpty Dumpty approach to reading instruction. You take the complex act of reading, you break it into parts, little sounds, and you teach children to put all the little parts together, thinking if I teach this series of skills in this order, this scope and sequence, by the time they get to the end, they'll be good readers. Well, here's the thing. You teach these little skills, they have behavioral objectives that they master, and they're still not learning to read. What's up with that? All right. Fifth citation, Walsh, Glazer, and Dune Wilcox. All right. And again, not a peer-reviewed journal, reports, not studies that have been published. So, teacher education programs, let's talk about that. It's absurd to think that you can create a finished teaching product in any teacher preparation program in 3 semesters or 4. We've got 3 semesters to teach them all these courses. In this, they get 2 courses, maybe, in literacy instruction, among with others. So 3 semesters plus student teaching. So 45 weeks is all we have them. And to think that you can prepare a teacher in 3 semesters, even 4 semesters, is you don't know what teaching is and how you learn to be a master teacher. In these 3 semesters, they keep throwing standards at us. You must do this standard and that and that. Now, a couple of academic standards in our teacher preparation programs are good. That doesn't mean that more are better. So we end up having to cover a whole bunch of things superficially. Now, in my literacy methods course, there's a bunch of standards, and some of them make no sense. Some of them, if I would have to teach them deeply, and I do cover them all, sometimes I cover them and I tell students how absurd they are, go against what I know about best practice, best research-based practice. And when you look at research-based practice, you don't look at 1 or 2 studies. You look at a variety of studies to see what the research points to and research-based theory. So we end up covering a whole bunch of stuff superficially, and students are not able to process, to learn deeply. Most of our students, it's not 1965. Because of tax cuts, tuition has continued to rise. There are consequences. So most of our students are working 20 to 40 hours a week. And think about that, 20 to 40 hours a week. For every course, you are supposed to put in 3 hours outside of class for every hour inside of class. 3 credit course, okay, 45 hours outside of class a week. That's just doesn't happen. Not able to happen. So students' time is very precious to them. As well, there's an increasing number of required gen ed requirements. They have to take all these courses, and then in their junior year, they can get into their major. We need fewer of these gen ed requirements. Now, from my perspective, a minimum of 3 years, 6, is needed to prepare pre-service teachers to begin the journey. That would be a minimum. Get rid of some of these gen ed requirements. Let us prepare teachers. Or a 4-year degree with some professional development, real professional development, not clowns who are out there to make money, but real literacy experts. Learning to teach is not simply learning a series of pedagogical skills. You learn this, that, and that. It's more complex than that. And learning to teach well is a journey that takes 4 to 40 years. You don't become a master teacher coming out of any college. Absolutely not. And learning to teach well, learning to teach reading is more than implementing some for-profit program, whether it's the Core 5 or some of these other for-profits. And some people think if we just find the right program, then our students will learn to read, and our teachers will be forced to implement it with fidelity. The problem is the teachers. They're not implementing with fidelity. No, the problem is the decision makers who are not allowing teachers to make the decisions best for their students. One size does not fit all. We need to understand to create and design effective reading instruction and interventions, how the brain creates meaning with print versus how you sound out words. And don't quote Sally Shaywitz to me. That research is very flawed. So we don't prepare finished teaching products. That means we need rigorous and meaningful continued professional development for teachers, administered by literacy experts, not for-profit experts, not an after-school research workshop. Don't send them to some workshop run by some company publishing a manual. Literacy experts. There's a reason why to teach in higher education, you need a terminal degree. You need to do scholarship. There's a reason for that. Because we need the experts teaching. Now, all of us hold a different piece of the pie. This is not to diminish what teachers know and can do. They know and can do things that I can't. But we work together to create a partnership in preparing our teachers. So, teacher education does not end when you get the degree. You just begin to learn some of the parts. We need to allow teachers to make choices. We want creative and intelligent teachers. We need to let them be creative and intelligent. They know their students. So yes, you can give them a program. Nothing wrong with a program or curriculum. But good teachers do not implement things with fidelity. That's educational malpractice. Good teachers will take a program and say, well, I need a little of this, but we don't need that. This kid needs that. That kid needs this, that. Now, when I tutor kids, I have a program all in mind. I have exactly what I'm going to do before I start the tutoring based on a diagnostic. But then I meet the kid and start working with them. Every kid needs something different. There are no one-size-fits-all magical programs. There are just magical teachers who have toolboxes full of research-based strategies. LETRS, a teacher professional development program that kind of pushes you in to buying something specific. Another Boondoggle,